Welcome to the third episode of the Club Wasserdicht Podcast. As we always start, this time it's a bit different. We tried in English. Let's see how the feedback is. So happy to get feedback from you guys if you prefer English or German, and hi to the friends in the US who listen to the podcast now. So we always start with a short review of the last couple of weeks and the things you're looking forward in the next couple of days. So let's start with that. The guys with the hoodies, Tobias, you changed your style. It's always, we always know when Adrian is wearing a hoodie, fundraising doesn't work so well. If he's wearing a suit, then we know fundraising is going well, or the other way around. So Tobias, do you want to start with your review?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably the major event was indeed the elections in the US. I don't.
We'll talk about it afterwards as well, right?
Sorry?
We'll talk about it afterwards as well.
But that, changed several things. I also was getting nervous as I was in 2017 when I started to reinvest a bit more in Bitcoin. And I once more realized I'm just not a good timing investor. You go in, you think too late, then you go out, and in fact, you're too early. So, but that was in a way probably a world-shifting event. Otherwise, what are the major topics?
Personal. Be a bit more personal.
Yeah, things are nice. I had my birthday party with most of my friends. I had a very nice evening with my girlfriend on the evening before. We had a bit of a hangover the next day. We brought the ship to Croatia, which is very good. So now it's in a wharf where I think they know what they do. We have a good project manager. And so we hope that by end of January, the ship is ready to go on a big trip, crossing the Atlantic and everything. So, well, in general, I'm happy to be here with you guys as well.
Let's go to the other guy with the hoodie, Adrian.
So on a personal note, I've had a very cool week of school holidays with the kids, and also a very cool time in Canada where I was out in the woods enjoying some time off, also some digital detox, enjoying Indian summer. So that was always good. I try to do that once a year, doing my retreat with myself.
Where was it exactly in Canada?
In the vicinity of Montreal. Yeah. So about 100 kilometers north of Montreal in the woods.
And close what kind of talks did you have there?
Talks, a retreat with myself.
Tobias, you're like the old uncle who's like, what did you do there? You need to get some headphones. Starlink is shit. You don't have headphones. It's like you're really the old uncle. What did you say? Talks.
So I was going to ask. Is something with my audio not right?
Tobias' internet is shit again, like last time, and still no headphones. Episode 3.
Can somebody hear me?
Okay, and so on the professional side, I think also quite a few things happened that I'm looking forward. So we're currently working on a few new investments that we will announce soon from the fund. We also had the announcement of the new brand, the Merantix Capital brand, that was released, that I'm quite happy about.
What is that? What is the Merantix Capital brand? What do you do?
As Merantix, we had this group branding so far, and sometimes it was a bit difficult to understand, okay, what is the VC part? What is the investment part? What is the consulting solutions part, which is Merantix Momentum? And what is the ecosystem, the campus part? And now we've had we have these 3 different brands, which also distinguishes the investment part a bit more clear. And also makes clear that we not only incubate companies, but we also invest in companies that are outside of our incubation process. And yeah, we're also very soon going to announce some more investors into the fund. That's also a bit of progress there. So fundraising partially is successful, but it's going slow. It's tough for everyone out there. And then maybe last, we are going to announce the AI House 2025 during the World Economic Forum very soon, which I'm very excited about.
Fantastic. Let's move to Marc. Shanghai.
Yeah,
Shanghai, right?
Yeah, Shanghai was definitely a highlight recently. I was there for the first time and was really fascinated to see how Chinese everything is. So since COVID, literally most of the expats left. So you can literally spend an hour in the city center going to Starbucks and everywhere, and you don't see any non-Chinese person. And it was a futuristic experience. I mean, mostly electric cars, everything very modern, futuristic, well-working. Yeah, it was a fascinating experience. I would say a little bit, you had a glimpse into the future. So impressive market. And I think as an entrepreneur, many exciting opportunities. So definitely took quite a few learnings with me.
Were you there because of longevity or because of crypto?
No, longevity. I mean, we have one of our recent investors is coming from a big Chinese family. So I met with him, had a good time. And I also spoke at the longevity conference, where also I would say 60% of the participants were not able to speak English. So you had a real-time translation. So many exciting things happening there without really seeing it from the outside. So like a completely different but very futuristic market also when it comes to health and longevity, especially now also when it comes to implementing AI. They're definitely ahead of us.
One short thing that you mentioned, which was so interesting, you're chatting with these people via WeChat, right? And there's like a direct translation. So you were chatting with these people, they were writing Chinese, you were writing English, and then you met them and they didn't speak any English. And so it's crazy what's happening with technology on these platforms like WeChat. We are not aware at all with WhatsApp what the power of WeChat is.
Yeah, and you can literally use all our existing apps like Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. It's officially even not accessible. I mean, via VPN you can use it, but still nobody's using it there. So you have to have Alipay, WeChat. So you have a completely separate digital ecosystem. I would also say advanced compared to our tools, but just, separate from everything. And if you're there, you literally spend all your time on WeChat.
Great. So
Alan, tell us about your highlights and
this year. I carried around with me everywhere, showing everybody. I was also in Canada, closer to Alberta, which was freezing. It was really cold, and Alberta is called oil country. So the Edmonton Oilers play there. That's why it's called the oil country. Or it's called the oil country, and that's why the Oilers. And Edmonton is a huge city, 1 million people, and you have these sky rises, and often you see these logos at the sky rises, like these KPMG and JP Morgans of this world. And in Edmonton, you just have companies never seen. They're like just huge oil companies, and it was fascinating to see. What a different kind of world it is. And we were playing there at the Pan-Continental Curling Championships. And last year, we were runner-up, second place behind China. And now China went up, and now we won the tournament. We had 12 games. We lost none of the games. And now we reached Pan-Continental Curling Championship A division. And now we are playing against the big boys. We are playing against Canada, US, Japan, and we can play now at the Asian Winter Olympics. Asian Winter Olympics will take place in China in Harbin, end of January 2025, and they are going to make a big thing out of it. So we expect, like in the opening ceremony, like 50,000 people, and walking in with your flag. That will be very cool. So. Curling. Also, our documentary is, it has a great storyline, because last year we lost and everybody was a bit depressed, and this year we won. So it's a great storyline.
Can you go a bit into the intricacies of, was it something you changed? Like, was it a single thing you changed, or was it a sequence of things that you now did differently that changed the outcome?
So last year, the tournament was in October, and as a team, we only played like, I would say, 4 months together, and now it's 1.5 years almost. We are playing together, and just the sequences are much more in line now, and we know what to do, and we can adjust. And I don't fall all the time, so that's a good thing. Tournaments I always fall and kick off all the stones, which is always a bit annoying for everybody. No, we are getting better. I'm getting better. I increased my percentage ratio a couple of points, and it's not horrible anymore. So the other guys can set more pressure on the other teams, and we're getting better and better. It's really fascinating, but there are still some weak points. I'm a very bad sweeper. That's something I need to improve until next year, and it's really hard because you need some core strength because you are lying like in a 45-degree angle. But that's what I'm looking forward to.
And tell us how you prepare for games. Tell us how you personally prepare for a game.
I have the hardest rap in my playlist, and I just focus completely. And I realized if I don't have the same routine, I play way worse. So I'm in there. It starts by putting on my shoes, the gloves, putting in the songs, always the same songs, then preparing my broom, focusing and trying to visualize where I want to play it, and then breathing routine to get down the pulse, and then on the ice, and then blackout, and it starts.
And Alan,
maybe also one follow-up question, I guess.
Sorry, both of you are talking.
Well, now you can go ahead.
This will be the Alan Frei podcast today.
So, Alan, what would you say is now the percentage that you make it to the Olympics in 2020?
Yeah, that was also my question.
You said like 10%. Are you now at 50, or where do you see yourself?
Yeah. So when
you should explain maybe the procedure, because everybody is interested, I guess, to understand how you now.
I will do that very quickly. So what we are doing, we have 3 tournaments we need to play to get to the Olympics. The first tournament is at the Pan-Continental Championship. We need to get from Division B to Division A. That's what we did right now. And now we are in the top 8 teams outside of Europe. So there's Europe and the Pan-Continental, which is the rest of the world. And now we are in the top 8 of rest of the world. And now we can compete there. And we need to play the pre-qualifying tournament, which will take place in autumn next year, and then the qualifying event. When I started the project, there was maybe a chance of 0.5%, 1%. And now I would say we are somewhere between 20 and 25. So the next tournament will be harder, but we don't need to win it. So I would say each tournament will add something like 30% to our possibility to get to the Olympics. Good. Let's take the focus away from me. Let's dig into the podcast, and I would start with crypto is back, baby. Fuck AI, crypto is back, and there's so I will give the word to Marc. So hey, Marc, tell us a little bit what happened in the last couple of days, and is it going to go in that direction, and how do you see it? Just give us a little insight and how you see it.
Yeah, I think the biggest trigger naturally was the US election, right? And unrelated to if you're pro or against Trump and his political perspectives, I think it's just pro-market in a way where many exciting business opportunities will arise. And I guess the price of Bitcoin was literally one of the indicators that now the economy thinks that without maybe less regulation and more pro-business attitudes, there will be exciting business opportunities. Naturally, as always, There are some hype elements in it. For me, one of the best indicators is the ranking of the Coinbase app, one of the retail trading apps. So normally you see Coinbase at rank number 100 or so. And in recent days, it accelerated. And if it's number one, then normally you can wait 2 to 4 weeks. And then we reach the peak because then all the retailers are in the game. But I mean, unrelated to the price, which is, as always, for me, just a small element of it, I think we now see the next phase of adoption. Several nation states, yesterday, among others, Pennsylvania, for example, they now really start to look at Bitcoin, especially as a potential reserve asset, similar to traditional currency, similar to gold. And I think that's then just the next level of adoption. If you really have the biggest investors, meaning the nation states, the national banks, which are now seriously looking into the space and start to buy Bitcoin. And as we have a limited supply, naturally the price goes up. And I think these are now just a few new additional triggers which will bring digital assets to the next level. And it will be interesting to see, besides the short-term volatility, where we land, because every time you have these hype cycles, people couldn't really think about the price increase, which is like a 3, 4, 5x. But that's what happened in the past. So everybody who's looking for the 100K, I think that's a nice milestone or benchmark. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see far different higher levels in the short-term future.
Tobias, you mentioned before that you are a bit too early and too late in investing. So let me ask you very clearly, are you holding your Bitcoin? Are you selling your Bitcoin, and why?
No. I mean, my original stock of Bitcoins I hold, but I made 1 million liquid for the election night. And so, you know, it looked like Trump.
Can you explain that very quickly? What was that I understand it? You made 1 million in liquid.
So I basically put 1 million Swiss francs on an account where I can buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But still in Swiss francs.
I thought you were talking about Polymarket. We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
And then I watched the election rolling on, and I bought a little bit at 68,000. And then I put my alarm clock at 4 o'clock in the morning. We got up again and checked where we stand. And, then it was clear that the swing states moved towards Trump. So at 74,000, it already was there. I bought some more and I thought, shit, I'm probably late. Yeah. And so I was all in at 68 was 250 and 74,000. I went in with 750. So a considerable amount. And then in the morning, I woke up and it still was at 74. And I said, shit, is this now the max and whatever? It's as I said, I'm not good in this market timing stuff. I get nervous. Yeah.
Why do you do it then? Why don't you just continuously buy?
I wanted to make an easy win. Something like that. It's like, anyway, so I sold this 1 million amount at 75,000 again. Well, now it's at 90,000, so it's like I'm pissed.
No.
Yeah, I think in this whole exercise, it was nice. I made some 50,000 Swiss francs in one night, which is super cool. But I hate myself for being this kind of like, it's going down. I might lose it. But the rest of my Bitcoin I keep holding, and I'm same page as Marc. I think eventually it will go up to the hundreds of thousands, and so no reason to sell. But gambling, I'm just not good in that. But Marc, what I wanted to ask, I mean, El Salvador was the first country to move into Bitcoin as a reserve currency. I mean, are they now out of debt, and is this country now one of the richest in the world, or did they? I have no clue. Did they go all in there, or?
No, I mean, they buy 1 Bitcoin per day. So I would say it's to a certain extent a little bit like a symbolic investment. I mean, it's not like that they have the whole strategic reserves in it. But another interesting example is Bhutan. Bhutan does Bitcoin mining, and they have now at the latest price more than 1 billion of their literally reserve assets in Bitcoin. So it's a substantial part of the Bhutan reserves. And there are now many rumors, I mean, Argentina, where there is a completely new approach, and especially some oil-rich countries, meaning Saudi and Qatar, who are already secretly piling up. So this is something which is not confirmed.
What is Switzerland doing? You're heavily involved in the Bitcoin scene here in Switzerland, and there was a push once. What's happening in Switzerland?
I mean, there was this initiative led by Lucius Meisser, the former head of the Bitcoin Association Switzerland and the chairman of Bitcoin Swiss, and we went together with a few other Bitcoiners to Bern, to the General Assembly of the Swiss National Bank. If you have 20 shareholders owning a share of the Swiss National Bank, you can do proposal during the AGM. So that was quite fun, because our proposal was to literally buy Bitcoin with the assets. And that was already 4 years ago. And every year, Lucius goes to Bern and shows what Switzerland literally missed by not investing in Bitcoin. And the feedback is also quite straightforward, and I think also an honest one. As long as Bitcoin is not regarded as a long-term asset, it's not something they consider. But again, if the US literally still the benchmark for, I would say, most Western countries at least, starts to really move into this field, it will change completely, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that Switzerland also changes its stand.
Let's move to Adrian quickly, because he couldn't say anything. How does it feel that nobody cares about AI anymore?
I think, when the hype is over, things can start to become real.
Back.
So
we were talking about the Gartner hype cycle a couple of times in here, right?
Yes. And I think that's the ups and downs. That's also the ups and downs we've seen in the crypto world in the past couple of years. And I think still, and that's the interesting thing, I think when you look at the long-term trends, it goes upwards, which means more and more people believe that this is an alternative asset you should consider. Now, I think when all we know about assets is it's usually not one asset category or asset class alone that you should bet your farm on. So I would say basing your asset strategy or investment strategy solely on crypto would be what Toby before said. That would be gambling, but not considering it also I think would be a mistake.
Give us a little bit of insight. You're the only one living outside of Switzerland. You're living in Germany. How is everybody's in this Bitcoin dream right now, and you see South American countries, Middle Eastern countries, the US is going all in on it. And we will talk about Europe later, just in a bit. How is it in Germany? Is that, with the elections coming up and everything, are people considering Bitcoin, or is it just out of their mind? Aren't they thinking about it at all? What's happening in Germany?
No, I don't think that Bitcoin is a big thing in Germany, to be honest. I don't hear a lot about it outside of our, let's say, startup bubble.
Crazy. So let's move directly in, let's use that segue.
Alan, one question, because last time you asked basically how much percentage do you have liquid. So let's go into what's your
good question.
Your total assets. How much do you have in crypto?
You're taking over the moderator role here. Love it. So can you guys tell quickly how much is the percentage in cryptos you're having? And let's include the meme coins as well. And then, so first question is, what's the percentage in cryptos and what's the percentage in meme coins? Marc, yours is the most interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and actually as an entrepreneur, my most or my biggest part of the assets are in companies, right? So, and also maybe not liquid ones, but I'm definitely more on the close to 90% of the assets which are to a certain extent movable are very close to Bitcoin and crypto.
We don't want to have this movable shit, blah, blah, blah.
Of your
What's the
wealth?
Percentage of your
more than 50%.
More than 50%. And meme coins?
And meme coins were
49%.
Exactly, 49. They were literally hardly inexistent, but now having a cycle, I already saw literally a few times, because every 4 years you have these cycles. I increased my meme coin exposure to, I would say, roughly 2%. But similar to what Tobias said, I mean, not really doing it for the long term, but really to get just a little bit extra alpha, and I will shrink it down to close to 0% again when this cycle is over again.
Usually I would move to Tobias, but Adrian has not a lot of talking time because we are not talking about AI. So Adrian, what's your percentage in cryptos and in meme coins?
It's less than 1%.
The rest is in AI.
Tobias?
Which is difficult to invest, right?
Yeah, it's 9% exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine is right now at this point, I would say between 9 and 10%. It increased quite significantly, but it increased from, I would say, 7% or something. It increased. And meme coins, I got rid of all my meme coins, 0% meme coins. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only ones I'm having at the moment.
Alan, for once we have the same investment strategy. It's new.
I'm copying your investment strategy. But let me use this.
That's the right path for you, yeah.
Let me use this beautiful segue from crypto to the elections. We were deciding to talk a little bit about it, what the impact is, and for me, the most fascinating thing was that the traditional media and the pollsters were all massively wrong, and Polymarket was spot on. So first question to you guys, did you bet on Polymarket? Because I know a couple of people who did. Did you guys bet on Polymarket? And what do you believe is the impact of these crypto betting markets versus traditional media and pollsters? Tobias.
I did not bet on Polymarket or looked at what people were betting there. For me, what I checked is the different media. So I checked Fox News in US, CNN, and then I compared it with the Swiss and German media. And what I found extremely strange is that the Swiss media and the German media were extremely contra Trump, which is okay. They can have whatever position they like. But instead of just, saying, oh, we are against it, they basically also completely wrongly said, he has no chance. It's unlikely that he gets elected, which I don't know exactly why they did so. Because, who in America cares what a Swiss newspaper is saying about the election there? So they don't have influence in my eyes. But still, they gave a very wrong picture to our citizens about what is happening in this election. And I mean, I would love that if Marc could tell about his stories. He was giving some posts, and some posts were rejected by Swiss media, even though they were neither strange nor difficult, but they were just not the opinion of the newspaper. Marc, you have to tell us. So I was honestly, I had a bit of a wake up when I saw how much brainwashing is going on in the media in Switzerland.
And to put it in perspective, you were very clear. It's not about the opinion, right? No. It was not about opinion left or right. It was about what's going on in the US with the election, right? Does he have a chance or not, right?
Yeah.
So, Marc, can you tell us a little bit? You're a futurist. You love technology. Did you look at Polymarket? Where did you get your information from? And how do you see, traditional media versus new media? What's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, I was heavily using Polymarket. I also betted on Trump on Polymarket, but more like also because I wanted to know how it works. I mean, Polymarket, I think, is one of the real world use cases of blockchain, using crypto to literally not just vote, but really put your money where your vote is. That's why I was literally using it several times a day. And that's why maybe also realizing that if you have money involved in any survey, the result might be a little bit closer to the reality compared to just giving a thumb up on a social media platform. So fascinating to see how it evolved. And I mean, for the ones not familiar, I mean, check out Polymarket now. You can do, again, very cool bets on what will be really changing in the US. So I think the approach is very smart. And similar to Tobias, I mean, I was also a little bit shocked to see, depending on the channel you used. I mean, I'm a big Twitter/X user, was always fascinated to this fast moving news source. And literally, by already knowing that Trump will win in the Swiss press, you still literally had headlines like, hey, it's a close race. And I mean, you literally just went from the Swiss media to any other publication, and there it was already clear that Trump will win. So I honestly also don't know why we have these different perspectives. And also similar to Tobias, I was just a little bit disappointed, and it's not about pro-Trump or pro-Harris or Democrats or Republicans, but I expect from journalists that they just objectively cover these things and also accept all perspectives. And I can understand that many people have now certain issues with this traditional, or some call it legacy media, because it seems in more and more cases they're not just really covering the reality, which is very sad, I think.
Adrian, I believe in Germany, when I was looking at German media, they even got it worse than the Swiss media.
Same.
How do you see it? Did you check Polymarket? Did you how did you get your information? And why do you believe were they so wrong?
So first of all, I have to say, I lost my trust and belief in media quite some time ago. I think moment for me was the pandemic, when you could just see how obviously media were spreading lies, trying to guide people somewhere, and not being scientific, and not to say not to talk about objectivism at all. I think that was the wake-up call for me, when I was like, oh wow, this is a very different understanding of journalism that I have. So let's just say we have an opinion and we state it. I would prefer that over, oh no, but we're just here to, talk about things as they are, because humans are humans, and it's hard to not have biases, because that's what happens in your brain too. That's nature. So rather being conscious of these biases and being upfront about them. So I did not bet, but I looked at different markets. I think Polymarket was one. Then you could also look at different types of financial markets and what people were betting there weeks, months in advance of the election. And I think there you already got the much clearer picture, much more interesting picture. And I think even in the US, so I was also following the US media quite a bit, trying to also cover different spectrums of the media. And I think even there, you could see that in the summer before Biden stepped down and made way to Harris, there was also very strange things going on. There was an obvious unfit person that was no longer the best person, and still he was cheered up by the traditional media because it was just the right thing to do. And I think that lost a lot of trust in US society, at least what I hear from my friends who live over there, which were another source for information. And I think not only the Silicon Valley tech bros, but people in different areas of the country which I spoke to, and I think gave you a very different picture from what we got here, let's say.
I mean, one question I have for you, because I'm really interested. What do you think will happen with Elon Musk being Minister of Government Efficiency now? By the way, did you realize that the name of the
obviously
Department of Government Efficiency, which is DOGE, which is Doge, which is the coin of Elon Musk. This guy is like, he's a really fun maker. No, it's amazing. I never know, does he plan things ahead, or do they just like fall in the right places? But what do you think? How long will it be, Minister? I mean, I also think it might be a clash between Trump and him very soon. What is your view, Alan?
So I was looking at Polymarket quite extensively, and for me it was interesting to see, like, will it be? I always had the thought that Polymarket had like this bias of crypto bros, and you could bet from outside of the US. So it was interesting to see this divide there. And now with Dodge and with Elon, my point there is, I'm not a big fan if politics is always strongly based on people. I truly love our system, which is, not about people. If you ask around the world who's the president in Switzerland, nobody knows. If you ask Swiss people who's the president at the moment, nobody knows, or very few people know. Do you guys know who's president at the moment?
I'm excused. I don't.
And that's, that's for me, that's a real asset. I really believe that's so good. And now in the US, with all these big personalities, I believe, this is my theory, like always, now everybody in the US is, especially on the right side, is like hyped on, okay, this will be absolutely fantastic, and it will return to the means. And I also believe that having all these personalities, kind of a clash will come. And I'm not sure if the attention span of Elon, is made for 4 years, or if he's just moving after a couple of months to another thing, like he often does. So that's my opinion. Is I'm always skeptical when it's about personalities, and I prefer our system.
And that's a very interesting point, actually, Alan, that you're making, because I truly believe that this is also what politics should be about. So it shouldn't be about persons, characters, but it should be about getting stuff done, because it's a job, right? Our job as entrepreneurs is to get shit done. Job of politicians should be to get shit done. And quite frankly,
their job is to get re-elected.
Yes, that's the problem, right? That's the problem. When you spend more time in making sure you get elected than doing the right things, then that's an issue. And it's the same in a corporate environment, right? Which also sometimes are guided by these kind of behaviors. But I think when I talk to people who voted for Trump, from my friends in US, and there were quite a few, everybody was saying the same things. Like, obviously, this is not the best role model for our kids. Yes, but he got and he will get shit done that needs to be taken care of, that needs to be done. That's why we elect this person, because that's the system we have. So we cannot change the system. So we need to play within the system, and that's the better choice in the system.
And ultimately, as an entrepreneur, I think there are now just exciting opportunities. I mean, if you again read the news, especially outside the US, it's always just about all the bad things which might happen. And I mean, we all remember what was written when he was elected for the first time. I mean, everybody was surprised that there was no nuclear war and everything. I mean, it was crazy how different the perception and the reality was. And that's why, again, I mean, without going too much into detail, if we love such characters and if it's the right fit for this role, I think we should look and focus on the opportunities. And I think there are massive opportunities for entrepreneurs and investors. So I'm excited. I also see many potential threats, but naturally, as an entrepreneur, you should focus on the positive elements. And that's why I think it will be interesting, but also quite crazy to see what's happening. And as we also discussed, I mean, there will be so many unique personalities coming together. I think there will be quite a few clashes. So it will be, social media will go crazy in the months to come.
So let me ask there a critical question very quickly, because you said there's like a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs. And this is something I was thinking about a lot in the recent days. You know, does it as an entrepreneur on our level? None of our companies are public. None of our companies, you know, probably it's when the situation for investors is better, there will be more money invested. But all in all, except for my crypto portfolio, does it have the big change? Because, you know, I'm not in a market where the global economy, I'm more on a micro side, that my things, that I have good processes, that I have a great team. These are much more important things for me. And is it now like, you know, people are moving too much on the side? Oh, the economy now, you see it at the stock market, you see crypto, so this will be everything much easier. Is that really the case for entrepreneurs at our level or smaller entrepreneurs, you know, to focus on these things, or just say, you know what, it just really doesn't matter except for my crypto portfolio and I need to get shit done in my space? How do you see that?
Matters a lot. I mean, look, I'll give you some examples why it matters probably for all of us, including you. The interest rate curve is affected by the new politics coming up. Yeah? So it will be an expansive money policy by Trump again. The dollar will lose versus the Swiss franc. The interest rates, you know, in Switzerland, most likely will have to go down, and in other countries they go up. Also, startup financing in Switzerland would be cheaper. However, at the same time, in other markets you get higher interest. So, you know, that will give you this will have an impact on your fundraising. Another concrete example, Avea, our supplement company, is doing very well in China. What we currently talk about is, okay, has the likelihood of China attacking Taiwan increased? I would say yes. Why? Trump very clearly says, I take care of my America first policy. And, you know, most likely he would not really go hard against China if they attack Taiwan, while Harris probably would have seen that differently. Yeah? And so we have to talk now about scenarios. What does it mean for one of our brands, which has 40% turnover in China, if China does this step? Yeah, does it mean there will be embargoes? How do we prepare for that? Do we build local production facilities, or do we just get out of that market? So I would say yes. I mean, these global policies have a relatively direct impact, at least on us at Maximum. Yeah.
What would you say would be the percentage, you know, of you as an entrepreneur, where the things you're working on versus these global impacts? How much would you put a percentage on it?
I didn't get that question.
So, you know, the success of your company, how much is the percentage of these macro global changes versus you as an entrepreneur, you know, like doing the daily work with the team and so on and so forth?
I think it's very specific.
Sorry, what was it, Tobias?
Or go you first again.
10 to 20%.
Okay, yeah.
But as an entrepreneur, I mean, as an entrepreneur, that's what you do as an entrepreneur. You constantly adjust your strategies based on new risks, and so that's what you have to do. Yeah.
And ultimately, it's extremely specific because if you have regulatory changes, I think less regulation in the US, others follow, it opens more opportunities, but still, naturally, you have the macroeconomic element, right? But I think especially now for healthcare, for example, and as we just learned, Kennedy will become responsible for that. He has a little bit different use than many of the market participants. So that will be a complete game changer for a whole industry, right? So I think this single fact will change many things in an extreme way. And there, I would say it's more than, I don't know, 70% is now based on regulatory frameworks, which will change massively.
And I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to be very honest here. What I like here is the word that Marc used, extreme change. I like to see this as a wake-up call for all of us, but especially Europe. Because what we tried in Europe over the past decades was managing things. And when we think about the past hugely successful societies that then went down. Think about the Egyptians, the Romans, or also the Chinese empire. They were all really powerful and mighty at some point, and then they started to manage. They started to try to to keep the wealth where it was, and no longer it was about growth and development. And then things started to go down. And I think that's what we see on a broader scale in Europe right now. And also what was one of the at least perceived issues in the US. And I think the interesting thing in the US is when you look at the numbers, you would say, yeah, but it wasn't really for real, even though people felt the country was going in the wrong direction. And I think we need to approach things in different ways than we did in the past. And so I'd like to think of this as the moment when we can start changing things again and think things in a new way.
Let's move to Europe very quickly. My opinion there is, I want to push a little bit back to that, because I believe that entrepreneurs at our scale, we are not Nvidia, we are not these global companies. I'm just a strong believer in creating my own luck. Not getting too dependent on these things. But my approach is a little bit different. I'm not in a fundraising process. I believe fundraising will have an impact with the interest rates going down or up. So I see your point there. I just want to, give entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast, in the end, it doesn't matter the environment. We as entrepreneurs, we need to navigate in these environments, and you can become successful, also in other environments, and when it's not only positive, right? But let's move to Europe quickly and to Switzerland. So you mentioned that before, Adrian. It's a wake-up call for Europe. But Europe has a different system with the different countries and the European Union. What do you see? You're closer to the European Union, and what I see when I read the news, that Europe is switching to more innovation again. Is that even possible with the structure we have right now, or how do you see that play out?
Well, for one, the good thing is we will be forced to. We will be forced to innovate. We will be forced to think more of our own, because we don't know, right? So it would be wrong to say that Europe will be left and the US is going to move on. That's far from clear here, because if there is one thing that we know is there was no exactly clear line in terms of foreign politics when it came to the last time Trump was in the office. So we simply don't know. But I like to think of this uncertainty as something positive, because it requires us to become creative again, to think, to build, to act. And I think what I hope here is that Europe stops thinking about regulation only, but starts investing again. And I know we've discussed this in previous episodes, but I think we have a chance now to be more creative and create our own opportunities, right? I'm very much with you that the bigger environment is only so much, and then what you make of it is really the most important thing. And yet you have opportunity costs, right? So right now you could also ask yourself, yeah, but what if I just go and spend time in the US building something there that might be growing quicker than it would be in Europe?
Let me move to Tobias. How do you see Europe, Switzerland, and are you guys moving with Maximum to the US more, or are you going more to China or Middle East? How are you navigating that, and how do you see Europe and Switzerland?
Well, Switzerland is still an island of happiness within Europe in all aspects. I think our companies are headquartered here, which makes sense because of government systems are fast, reliable, taxes are relatively low. It's good to be here. However, when we look at markets, as I said before, we are already in China. All of our companies have global approaches. None of them is focusing on the Swiss market only. Avea, for example, plans to do a Series A next year. I mean, they're super successful. They break even. Why do we do a Series A? Because we want to get enough capital to go to US. And so if we enter the US market, I want to do this with 20 or 25 million marketing budget, because otherwise it's just difficult. So yes, we look outside. I think what we have not talked about, and that's very interesting, is how fucked up Germany is. I mean, you probably saw it. Germany is basically without a government right now. The Ampelkoalition miserably failed with Lindner out. And we are not talking about it. It seems to become irrelevant. I mean, Germany is still the biggest trade partner of Switzerland, but apparently for us, not. Even for Adrian, who sits in Germany, the Trump election seemed to be more relevant than what just happens in German politics. And for me, when I look at what happens in Germany, I'm very much reminded of this book of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I don't know whether you read it. It's you should read it. It's a fantastic book. It's basically the libertarian Bible. It's a fictional book, but great to read. And she explains, just like in the 1900s or so, how the train barons all leave US because government and managers are just fucking around with them. And I think what we see in Germany is since 10 years is exactly this: that the good German entrepreneurs are leaving Germany. The big companies suddenly are headquartered in Switzerland or somewhere else. Entrepreneurs move their tax seat away from Germany. And yet government best idea is to say, well, what can we do to get even more taxes out of entrepreneurs and so on? So I think as an example of a state which is failing pretty fast, we have to look closely at Germany. I wonder if a new government under CDU, which is hopefully coming this year, can pull it around fast enough. But Adrian, maybe you can tell us a bit more. How is it to be in Germany? Is it irrelevant for you what happens there, or?
Yeah, that's funny, because I perceive it as it's relevant for me as a citizen, because it's after all the strongest economy in Europe, and it has the biggest sway if it wants to what happens in Europe. So it could also be a role model. That's why I care. For me personally, as an entrepreneur, much less so, obviously, because majority of our companies are global companies. They operate in a lot of different geographies. And we also, I think we discussed that last time, I tell my founders to go wherever they can scale the most quickly, be that India, the US, Portugal, or Czech Republic, for that matter. I don't care. I want these companies to grow quickly. And to think outside the borders, and there's not a single company that would only operate in one country in our portfolio. Now, when I look at the past years, and I have to be honest here, I'm saying the past 20 years, German politics was managing. German politics was not building and investing. And I think this should change. And if that needs radical change, then so be it. Then maybe that's better than just modeling on and trying to do something that doesn't really work. How does that look? I don't know. And I think that's one of the topics I personally sometimes I'm spending my time on thinking, like, how would also the political systems need to change so that people feel more empowered again and also feel more responsible for what happens? Because I think that's one of the themes you can see in these large countries where more and more people just feel like they're no longer connected to what happens and they feel they're not part of the system, but the system is somehow managing them. And I think it should be the other way around. That's why I think Switzerland is a beautiful example where this perceived closeness between the government and myself is much closer because I'm all the time asked about my opinion, and it matters because what happens around myself matters. So I don't have the solution, but I hope for some shakeup, for new ideas and not just the same again.
We are almost at 1 hour again, and one feedback was don't make it over an hour. I want to get Marc's perspective very quickly because you've been traveling a lot. How do people around the world see Europe and Switzerland? What's your perspective? You know, you've been to China just recently, Middle East. How do they see it? Is it irrelevant?
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate to realize that. I would say I remember the times when you traveled and it was like everybody was looking at you and Europe was a role model, and that definitely changed completely. Nobody's waiting for us anymore. I mean, as I said, in China, I mean, the market is big, it's more modern, it's fast moving, more entrepreneurial. So why should they literally focus on China besides having some additional customers on Europe? Sorry. And that's why, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. And I would also say if I wouldn't live in Switzerland, I think I wouldn't stay on this continent, which is very sad. And it's just around us. People are somehow, they have a different mindset. That's why, similar to what we already discussed, I mean, if everybody leaves, it won't change the situation, but we really need a massive extreme change in the mindset. Otherwise, I think we're just preserving the status quo. And as we heard, that's not going to work. And I think we should just be more realistic and also maybe spend more time not on newspapers, but on really going to these countries and see what's happening there. And many people will be shocked because it's really, I would say, for me, it was exciting, but it's also a bit shocking to see how others literally surpassed us in a massive way.
Let's move to the end. This was a podcast where we didn't talk a lot about AI. Maybe this will change again. But let me get your closing statements very quickly. So what are you guys excited about? Where are you going to invest in? How are you preparing yourselves for the next couple of months? Just from a personal level, but also from an investment level. Tobias, shall we start with you?
Yeah. Look, so what I'm preparing right now for is really, I have to do some real estate investments, but I will get money back when units are sold. And with this, I most likely invest more in crypto. So as Marc said, I also think that the 100K at Bitcoin will not be the end. And it would be just silly not to be having more exposure there. Personally, I'm looking forward for Christmas season, going to St. Moritz. New house is ready. By the way, that's maybe a funny one. So my new house is super sustainable. All the walls are solar panels. I have 10 geothermal drillings, and heating system comes via a Bitcoin miner. So when the sun is shining, I mine Bitcoin. And with 97% efficiency, the heat from these computers is transferred into the floor heating and the swimming pool heating.
Mention quickly, what are they called again? The guys who are doing that, to give them a shout out.
The company is called Riot. It's R epsilon 3T, so it's spelled in a funny way. But yeah, look, I mean, if you build a house or if you have to replace your heating system, why not do it in a productive way? And so, my heating gives me money. It's cool.
How about you? How about you, Marc? What are you looking forward to? How are you positioning yourself? Putting everything in Bitcoin and in Doge, or what are you doing?
No, also looking forward to the Christmas season. Also, new project which can we maybe talk about next time. And also maybe after all these exciting things, looking at what's really going to happen, right? So avoid a little bit the noise when it comes to crypto. Definitely not check out the prices every day, but also when it comes to politics.
Every hour checking crypto prices every hour. I don't believe that you have. I see your phone and I see how it pops up all the time. So
yeah, it's on my main screen, but still, I would say just maybe even take the time of Christmas to do a step back and relax and think a little bit more about the big picture and less about the short-term stuff, which is, I think, always challenging when you have so many things. And I think we never saw so many crazy things happening in parallel, but maybe just sometimes relax and forget what's happening on all these crazy happenings and enjoy the time with your loved ones.
How about you, Adrian?
So I continue to be bullish on AI, obviously, as I still think what we're seeing is just the first % of what's going to be there. So majority of my investments go towards that angle, while I still also don't try to forget others to have a bit of a balanced investment. But if I look at my assets, I think 90% of mine are in AI related matters, and I think I'm an optimistic person, so I look forward to what kind of positive developments we can see from the ripple effects of this shakeup or perceived shakeup, because after all, it wasn't really a shakeup. But I think there's a lot of momentum that can now come, a lot of positive energy if we use it, and I'm in that camp. So I'm very optimistic about what's to come, and I also see a lot of chances for us here to change things, and that's what I will spend my time with, besides, of course, also enjoying some off time during Christmas.
And maybe, Adrian, since you mentioned it, what maybe for our next podcast, I would love to understand a bit more about the AGI coming up, all the AI being as smart as all the humans and probably one day later being 10 times smarter. And I just hear now more and more guys like Peter Diamandis and so on saying, hey, this is moving much faster. Elon Musk says it's moving much faster. We might reach AGI by 2027. That's in 3 years. Yeah.
We'll talk about that next time.
That would be cool.
Let's do that.
We just dig into that a bit more. Eh?
Yeah, I think where Bitcoin is. If Bitcoin is 200, we will not talk about it. Doesn't matter.
I think the only caveat that I would like to make is we will need to decide whether we make it a technology discussion or we make it a philosophical discussion, because right now these two things are very detached.
Let's keep that in mind.
We can go into that next time.
I'm just thinking about about the people who are listening to the podcast. So my closing statement, what I really loved about Marc was, block out the noise, focus on work again. It's too tempting to check all these markets all the time, but in the end, I need to create my company. It doesn't matter. I have all the things I know I need to do, and nobody who is angry on X will help me. So I need to do the work, and I'm very thankful that we live in Switzerland. I think we need to take care of Switzerland, and I'm looking very much forward to the time because Adrian was in e-commerce. So Black Fridays and all these things are coming up. I don't need to care about these. I can spend time with you guys. We are going to this great ball in a couple of days. We will see each other in the mountains, and that's something really, really nice. So looking forward to see you guys in person.
Yeah, the next podcast is in person, right?
Yes, it's a drunk podcast.
That's also a highlight.
Oh, yeah, that will be fantastic. And please
Christmas podcast.
Leave a message if you like the English one, or was it again too long? Give us some feedback. We are still navigating here. And let's see if the next one is in English, drunk in English. I'm not sure if you're very good at that, but let's see.
See you soon.